A record number of women are running for public office across the country this year, and that includes here in California, where almost a third of the top two candidates in all statewide, federal, and legislative races are women. Experts point to a lot of reasons for the surge, from Donald Trump's election to the Harvey Weinstein scandal and the Me Too movement. Rachel Michelin is CEO of California Women Lead, a nonprofit, nonpartisan group that encourages women from across the political spectrum to run for office. She says the sheer number of female candidates has the potential to be significant.
Looking at the women running in some of the hotly contested congressional seats in Southern California, that could have a huge impact in terms of the overall number of women in the congressional delegation. The flip side of the coin is you could also see, particularly in the Republican delegation, 0 women serving, because Mimi Walters is currently the only woman Republican in the California congressional delegation.
Wow. Okay.
And if she loses, then, and Young Kim doesn't win or Diane Harkey doesn't win, you could actually see California not having one Republican women in the congressional delegation. So I think that's something to consider as well. While we've seen an uptick, you've seen it particularly among the Democrat Party, not so much among the Republican Party. And so we'll kind of see how that pans out at the congressional level.
Here in California, women already hold some high-profile political jobs. I mean, one of the first things that comes to mind is that both the state's U.S. senators have been women for years now. Mm-hmm. But are women making inroads across the board, or are they running for and getting into some offices more than others?
One of the misconceptions, I would say, about California in terms of women's representation in elected office is that exactly what you just said. We've had for over 20 years, we were the first state to send 2 women to the U.S. Senate when we sent Dianne Feinstein and Barbara Boxer.
And there's the sense that California is progressive,
Correct,
right?
Correct. We've got Toni Atkins is the first woman to serve as president pro tem of the state Senate. We've had a few women recently serving as Speaker of the Assembly, but we still haven't elected a woman governor of our state. What's promising is that, we could very well have 3 women serving in state constitutional offices after the November election, having a woman lieutenant governor. I think that sets things up. You're going to have some women in key positions who could make that leap to running for governor down the road. So I think that we're making progress, but you still have to, look back. Out of the 10 largest, most populated cities in the state, women only are mayor of 2 of them, San Francisco and Oakland. When you look at the percentage of women serving on city councils in California, it's still 27%.
Wow.
We still have to get women elected to the state legislature, not just to increase our numbers, but also to make sure that there are still committees where you don't have very many women serving on them. We need to have more women who have that leadership in order to serve as chair of committee so that we can have more of our voice on committees where a lot of the policy decisions are made at the state level. And when we don't reach parity in terms of 50% of women serving the state legislature, that means that on 50% of these committees, we're not going to have the same representation.
I was really stunned when I realized that this year no female candidates made it through to the general election for governor, attorney general, insurance commissioner, or secretary of state. Why do you think it is that women tend to run for things like Congress, but they're not running for these big state offices where often, major policy is set?
Number one, it's so much more expensive to run statewide than to run for a congressional seat, number one. Number two, it's a lot of work, right? Because when you run for Congress or the state legislature, you're running in a district. So you have a geographical area that you're running in. When you're running statewide, you have to, be all over the state of California. And I think the other thing is women get elected to office, particularly, and I'll use the state legislature as an example. When they get elected, they focus on that elected office. They're focusing on doing the best job that they can, and that's something that women do. A lot of times men, and they've done this for years, do a better job at strategizing of where they want to go.
Right.
And they will use elected office to get to their end game. Part of it is women, we have to accept it's okay to say, I want to be governor of California. I want to be a U.S. senator, and this is how I'm going to get there. Women have to own that, and for whatever reason, we still run into, and I run into it all the time, but I'm not an expert, but I'm not qualified.
Right.
And I need to do A, B, C, X, Y, and Z.
I need to check all the boxes.
Exactly.
Yes.
And men don't do that. They just jump in and do it. Whether they win or not, they figure I'm going to pick myself up and I'll run again.
Rachel Michelin is CEO of the nonpartisan group California Women Lead. Now, she says here in the Golden State, women candidates are much more likely to run as Democrats than Republicans, at least partly because of groups at both the national and the state level that help Democratic female candidates with things like training and funding their campaigns. Michelin says there are very few such groups on the GOP side. You're listening to Morning Edition.